Thanks very much, Breed. I hope I am indeed informative and engaging. So I'll do my best on that. So we're a very proud member of Guaranteed Irish and delighted to be given this opportunity and much appreciated. Afternoon, everybody. So I'll keep this as concise as possible. We could go on for hours on the insights that we've gleaned over the last 8 weeks. Particularly since mid-March. So I'm just going to briefly take you through our the latest survey insights, the trends. Maybe we should say, will what's happening in these current times, will they accelerate trends? Because we've had from a food and beverage perspective, there's been many trends that we'll touch on that were already in play, but it's really a case of now seeing some that will definitely fast track as we come out of lockdown. So again, consumer demands, consumers are definitely getting more demanding, even more so now. So brands really have to be on top of their communications with the consumers. The new normal, just take you through a couple of international pieces of research we've come across there. From a communication perspective, again, that's just going to focus on communicating with your target consumers. And that's particularly from, again, a food manufacturing, food and beverage company perspective. 2021 and beyond, it's taking the insights and it's just looking at what's happening both here in Ireland and in other countries and seeing where we go from here. And we've finished with a couple of recommendations to food and beverage brands. Before I do that, I will also be introducing a collaboration that we're quite excited about, which just has come together in the last number of weeks. So we're quite excited about that, and I'll tell you about that later on. Okay, so we started surveying on the 16th of March. We touched with 1,100 of our consumer database who were scattered around Ireland. And again, here are some of the insights that we have gathered. So it's a relief to find that from the first survey to the second, that the emphasis on toilet rolls and pasta had actually changed to home cooking meal ingredients and baking ingredients. So we were quite relieved about that. So again, it seems that there's definitely a fight between health and indulgence, and that's what you would expect in current times. So for the first few weeks, nobody really knows how long we're going to be in this situation. And again, it's getting the balance between, are there screaming kids around the house? Everybody's life is turned upside down. So, that does lend itself to probably more unhealthy snacking, more indulgence. But we're finding that as the weeks have gone by, then people are definitely looking more into the health side of things. So we know surge in home cooking. And as you can see there, from shopping local. So again, what we found is that most people are now putting the long list together. They're going to their preferred major multiple, and then they're doing the top-up shop locally. So again, bearing in mind what was happening up to mid-March, maybe this is a good thing for, local villages, small towns, that people are now back supporting the local butcher, the local fruit supplier, and we're definitely seeing an increase in that, and hopefully that will continue. And what's from an Irish perspective, we're all in this together. It's fantastic to see the support, 65% plus from our survey insights that are saying we're absolutely supporting Irish. So again, I'll come on to it later on, but a key message for food brands here in Ireland is, get your Irishness out there, get your provenance message out there, tell them where you're getting your ingredients from. It's all relevant to consumers, and they want to know. We did another piece of research, and people are saying, side by side, if it's an Irish product versus a similar, call it an imported product, and the Irish product maybe a couple of cents dearer, well then people will pay that difference provided they understand the story and they understand the brand and the brand is communicating with them. So again, just to summarize that, you know, it's the health consciousness versus the indulgence. So some additional insights worth focusing on is I back in Cork Breed, I mentioned that we're now in the era of conscience cuisine. So this is definitely borne out, whereby the consumers are far more conscious in what's happening. Chefs are now more conscious. There's, again, it's back to local support, it's local ingredients. But some key findings are definitely reducing waste. So people are very, very conscious about reducing waste. We have found that out. Again, people are very much more price aware, but there's also, you know, the tinned food and the tinned food, frozen foods, there's definitely a raiding the cupboard. And if you look at the young chefs on Irish TV channels, certainly, and some in the UK, you know, they're putting together some really tasty meals by taking that can of whatever it is, or tin of whatever it is out of the cupboard, or 2 tins, mixing it with some pasta, with some garlic, with some, so it's all about building recipes, building people's confidence that even with what's in the cupboard, they can do a really tasty meal. It doesn't have to be just heat what's in the tin and suffer through that. So again, there's brand loyalty out there, as we know, but there's definite opportunity in that from a supply chain perspective, certain shelves were laid bare. So it was a case where people who would not have tried a known brand product are now trying it because their preferred brand wasn't on the shelves. And lo and behold, they found that the taste profile, which is what we harp on about, is actually good, and it's at least equal to their preferred brand. So there's definitely an opportunity, and I'll come back to that later as well. Okay, on the drinking front, yes, there is an increase. So as you can see, week 12, 21%, up to 38% in week 18. So again, I suppose to be expected. What we've also found, though, is that it's on a social perspective as opposed to a troubling perspective. So you've got people who are doing their Friday night quiz nights, or, you know, they're getting together for a couple of drinks with Zoom. They're mixing cocktails, testing them out, having a good bit of fun. So again, it's you know, it's a trend and an insight that we've gleaned over the last number of weeks. So we've done a deep dive into a couple of sectors. And again, you know, if there are any sectors that you're particularly interested in, well, we can reach out to consumers and get whatever the key findings it is that you're looking for. So what's fantastic to see, and here's the battle of the health versus indulgence, is a 50% increase in fruit consumption. So, you know, that's, again, really, it's people are saying, right, I don't want to get this big bad COVID. I want to keep myself healthy because that's the best chance I have of fighting it off. So again, if fresh fruit is going to help me do that, well then that's what I'm going to do. So again, you know, it's whether it's in smoothies or whether it's as a healthy snack. And again, what we found out is freshness and taste are the absolute #1s for the consumer. That's what they want to see. A surprise finding for us was that people would prefer loose fruit. They prefer to pick their apples, pick their oranges, whatever else it is, which is telling us that, you know, they're happy to put it into their bags, and then they're going home and washing the fruit. So again, taste and freshness, absolute #1 from a fruit perspective. So global data, as it's saying there, you know, has found, not surprising, 73% of consumers find products with added nutrients appealing. So again, we're back to, you know, health is definitely the new wealth. And you can split that into gut health and mental wellness. So without getting into the science of it, is if you eat good, you feel good. It's as simple as that. And that is what's coming back or coming through to us on the insights we're getting. I touched base with Gareth Healy from the Healy Group, the ingredients company established for many years. And, you know, whilst food service is effectively gone, again, from manufacturing for a retail perspective, they're up about 15% year on year. So again, that's just showing, and there's a key growth from the fortified and the functional food perspective. Their, as he calls it, their prebiotic fibers he sees them going through the roof for the rest of this year and into 2021. You know, increasing demand is coming from meat-free and vegan products. So again, there's definitely scope. We've worked with a number of startups in that space, and there's definitely scope for tasty products to be launched into the Irish market by Irish either existing companies or startups. So again, 18 to 34-year-olds we have found getting very health conscious, and this is true from an international perspective as well. So, you know, call it, everybody's looking for an immunity boost. If they can get that through their food, through their drinks, well then that's how they want to continue on with what we'll call the new normal. And clean label healthy products, they really need to be exactly that. So again, I've been on a lot of international webinars over the last few weeks, and brands, there is a trust issue with a lot of brands who have made claims, and the claims can't particularly be substantiated. So really it's a case of, if you're giving a healthy message, then you've got to be able to prove that that actually is the case. So go direct to the new normal. Again, came across this a couple of weeks ago. There's no point saying, oh, when will things go back? They won't. So we just have to grasp it and get on with it. So a couple of examples. There's a Canadian entrepreneur, and he has started with what he says will be 1,000 40-foot rigs for mobile shops. Now you can do that in Canada. It's a vast country, but even here on today, local to me, there's a guy who's put together two former containers, and they're now producing excellent pizzas. So he's gotten permission to park up in the car parks of a couple of pubs that are closed, and he's got queues, all with social distancing and so on. So again, you're going to see more of that as we continue. Local farmers, they have always been selling some produce, or some have. You're going to see more doing that direct, and supplying to online stores. And again, people are comfortable to support local and go to a farmer who's got, you know, his carrots and his spuds fresh out of the ground. There's definitely a trend showing that will continue. Food service giants, so their market collapsed. Cisco at Home is an example in Canada. So they launched direct to consumer. Now, it has its limitations, because you've got to buy 24 or 48 or whatever it is. But if you've got a freezer, then that's not an issue. So their strapline was food service doesn't break for adversity. So there's a massive company doing a pivot from a B2B direct B2C. The Premium Butcher are going great guns. They're owned by Dawn Foods. And again, in the States, you can see Best Buy has 3-month waiting lists for freezers. So friend I was talking to, you can see the day coming where the likes of the Premium Butcher will say, look, we'll give you a lamb, or we'll give you half a cow or whatever, and we'll supply the freezer. So from an IoT perspective, the freezer is going to is going to identify there's not much left. It can ping to Dawn Foods, to Premier Butcher, to say, get on to Aidan Murphy, or it'll come into my app and say, look, do you want to order new steak, whatever it is. So, that day is coming, And what lockdown has done is gotten people thinking, right, how can we fast track that? So it's definitely going to happen. Listen to a Kerry Nutrition webinar the other day. I think it was Fiona Sweeney. And again, you know, people are saying, yes, I'm getting into home cooking. I'm getting into baking, but what a bloody mess. So again, some big suppliers and smaller suppliers are looking at, okay, let's put a kit together to make this very easy. And not only is it easy to cook, to bake, you're saving on washing up. I got a kit, a porter cake kit from a friend of mine in the Aran Islands. And again, everything measured out. All I had to do was add butter and eggs. Very easy to put the mix together. And lo and behold, had a nice porter cake. So, you know, again, you're going to see more growth with finish at home kits, as they're called. And again, in that, the brand versus own brand battle is going to get interesting. So as Nike would say, we would just contend, just go and do it. If you've got ideas, if you have done your research and you know that consumers will relate or do relate to the taste profile of your product in particular, well, just do it. Communication, again, massively important. And it's down to, so you know, you have a menu there of what can be done, but it's like a couple of examples would be Ritter Sport in Germany. So Ritter Sport is the biggest chocolate brand in Germany, but they don't promote themselves as a chocolate brand. They promote themselves as a convenient energy supplier. And again, they build their messaging around trust and sustainability, in that for the last 30 years, they've been planting cocoa trees in Nicaragua. So again, from a fair trade perspective, there's the sustainability element, and there's the support element and the revenue element for the local farmers in Nicaragua. And again, so the chain, the supply chain, right through to the Ritter Sport bar that if you haven't been to Germany, you would see in duty frees, whenever we're going to see that again. So again, really strong messaging, and it's focusing on the energy side as opposed to the indulgence side. But what they also promote is moderation. So they're not saying you can eat 10 of these bars and you'll be fine. They're just saying, look, this can give you an energy boost, and this is, you know, this is an important message that you take on board. So again, from a frontline working perspective, they were quick out of the blocks in Germany to supply frontline workers with some of their dark chocolate infused with hazelnuts. So again, promoting the energy attributes from their bars. And you know, from an Irish perspective, some of you may have seen that Keogh's Crisps, for example, very quick out of the blocks to supply crisps from a snack perspective into the frontline staff, which was a great initiative. So 2021 and beyond, a lot of you will be familiar with the David Attenborough quote. I think it is a case of people are getting much more planet conscious. A lot of people have a time on their hands to think, right, what are we doing? Where are we going? Again, I was on a webinar from one of the senior tech guys in Tetra Pak. So Tetra Pak, we know, are, you know, right all over the world with their packaging, but they actually now go to companies, and have done for some years, in helping them to, from a manufacturing perspective, reduce waste, because there is a lot of waste in the manufacturing process, but it's right down to reducing the amount of water literage required to produce drinks, and everything is getting into generation 4.0, as they call it, where they will go in and they'll do an analysis on the manufacturing processes of companies, because they're working with them on their packaging, and they will save them money, time, and contribute to sustainability and the environment. So again, from a local seasonal perspective, that's not a new trend. Many chefs, as we know, have been ahead of the curve, and they will say we're only promoting that we're using steaks from a local farmer, and our lettuce is grown locally, our cabbage or broccoli, and so on. So there's nothing new in that, but what we're finding now is there's definitely an acceleration of eat local and be seasonal and be happy with seasonal produce. So again, from a prediction perspective, healthy snacking, there's no doubt about it. There's big potential there. So any budding food producers, it's worth having a look at that from a functional food perspective. So new ideas are required. It's no longer the same old. It's really a case of consumers now are cost savvy. They're now experimenting more at home. So it's a case of, you've got to be able to hit their budget spend and their meal calculations. So here's where I'm going to tell you about our great collaboration with My Insights on Time. So My Insights on Time is run by the ladies who founded MyKidsTime.ie. And that was all of 13, 14 years ago. So My Insights on Time has grown out of the experiences that they've built up over the years, but also the feedback that they've gotten from the ladies, the women of Ireland, over those last 13, 14 years. So we continue to do what we do on the quantitative side with our online surveys, like we've shown you the results of now, and they focus on their online focus groups. So you can see, I'll just read a quote from one of the focus groups, which is not here, before I go into the recommendations, which is, I thought I wasn't snacking too much, I was delusional, got on the scales and frightened the life out of myself. So much healthier snacks and food in this week's shopping. So again, a great woman for her honesty, but there's back to, the health versus wealth, and just kind of grasping the situation now and saying, right, we have to start to look after ourselves. So they're the key insights that we're going to be delving into with Jill and Michelle and the team in My Insights on Time over the coming weeks and months. So again, it's back to communication. So there's reference there to, give ideas for recipes. There's definite opportunities around your digital messaging, whether it's through Instagram or Facebook. Will then put the recipes up there, put the ideas up there for reducing food waste with your product, if it's relevant, or tips for freezing your product, or for freezing the leftovers, or what can you use the leftovers in. Again, it's really a case of packaging. Can you fit in some new ideas on the packaging? Can you put in tips on the packaging? But what's really jumping out for food producers is tell people about your Irishness. So again, as I said earlier, Irish people are supporting Irish products. So you've got to be front and center. And as I said at the start, we're proud members of Guaranteed Irish. You've got to get that message out there that you are an Irish company, you're supporting Irish jobs, and you do that right through your communications, right into your digital communications. So we're nearly there, and it's really a case, I was reminded, so what we do is we're a bridge to the consumers of Ireland. So we have a very substantial consumer database, and we work with everybody from startups to some of the biggest food production companies in the world, and many in between. But I was reminded, and thanks to Yvonne Power of YPC for this, about the old Kerrygold saying, if you remember Andre and the butter on the spuds. tastes change, but taste never does. So you have to stay in touch with the consumer. You have to communicate with the consumer, and you really have to get your learn from the consumer, because they will help you steer the ship. If you ask the right questions, they will be honest, and consumers are now much more informed from a food and beverage perspective. They will say, look, if you do this or you do that, we will support your product. So you have to do that. You have to stay in touch with your consumers. So just before I wrap up, I just came across so Rabo Research, which is the research arm of Rabobank from a worldwide perspective. So they've got, they're obviously large food companies and retailers have been the winners in the last number of months. But watch out for startups who have listened to consumers. So again, they've asked the question, will we continue to enjoy all of this cooking from scratch? Or will the decades-long push for greater convenience remind us why we outsourced half our food dollar to food service and our bread baking to Bimbo Bakeries, Pepperidge Farm, and Flower Seeds? So, okay, nobody knows the answer, but our insights are telling us that, it's like everything. There's going to be a balance. Trends were already there. Some of the trends will accelerate due to the last number of months. We don't know what's going to happen when we get into the winter months. Hopefully, everything is going to be everything is going to get back to as close to a normal as it can be. So thanks very much, everybody. If you want any more information, there are my details, and I'll be happy now to answer any questions.
Thanks very much for that, Aidan. Just coming back to you on a couple of questions from the attendees. Somebody was looking for the source of the consumer data, but I think you've covered that. You're actually a research company in the food space itself. Is there anything you want to elaborate on there?
Well, again, there's obviously, there's a lot of graphs and pie charts behind the summary that I've done there, Breach. So if somebody wants to get in touch, then we'll be happy to discuss that with them.
Okay, and don't forget to take note of Aidan at innovatesolutions.ie and his mobile there as you see it on the screen. One of the things we're also looking for is in terms of, I was very interested in your point about the homegrown and the need for people's desire to go back to the small maker and the small producer. That seems to be coming through, and we would see it a lot with small artisanal producers contacting Guaranteed Irish to become a member and to dial up their Irishness, which of course we welcome. But from the trends out there in retail, there seems to be a big push, even for the big retailers, which we would have in our family in Guaranteed Irish. They're really supporting the local new producer that's coming through that has a sustainable product or a product line and being able to fulfill it. Do you see that as growing, Aidan? And if so, how far do you think this can be pushed before, the big consumer, the big food producer is probably not going to go away either?
No, they're not. Now, again, I'm aware that there's a lot of smaller food producers are struggling at the moment. So again, so the big players in securing their supply chains, they're the ones who have profited very nicely over the last couple of months. So let's say you had an artisan to mid provider who was, let's say, 30-40% into the retailers, but then the rest was into food service. So they want to get back replacing that business as quickly as possible. If their online wasn't up to scratch, or they're, as I refer to, putting recipes online, getting engaged with consumers, there's a lot they can do to channel into B2C to replace some of that lost business from the food service perspective. Again, a couple of examples to my read on success stories from an Irish startup perspective that have now been acquired by much bigger brands. So you've got the brothers down in Greystones, the Happy Pair, now owned by Musgraves. You have Cully and Sully, owned by, forget the name of the fund in the US. So you know, they started very small in kitchens and they expanded out from there. So it can be done, but at the moment, the smaller producers just need to really fight hard to keep their market share. But again, back to, we're aware of, you know, these startup programs that some of the retailers support. But what we're also aware of is they don't do consumer research before they put the products on the shelves. So, you know, it's a case of do the research, get the taste profile of the product right, and then you'll develop sales from there.
And Aidan, in relation to that, a lot of food producers who are starting off don't feel that they can afford to do the consumer research. And I know the argument is always you can't afford not to do it, but does Innovate Solutions cater to those very small producers as well, budget-wise?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to talk to anyone.
Okay, well that's good to clear that, because I think a lot of people feel they just can't afford it and they're hoping for the best, but without the research, it leaves them in very shifty grounds, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but again, you know, the Leos around the country, they're providing a lot of these startups with funding to put a marketing program together, including some research. So, you know, there are supports there that can be tapped into for the likes of ourselves.
And sorry, Aidan, one other question then. A question from one of the listeners. Do you think non-Irish brands are hurting a little bit more during this here at home in the consumer spend?
Well, again, it all depends on the supply chain. So if they've been able to get in as normal, well, then probably not. But you know, we had experiences in the first number of weeks of the shelves. That was mainly down to, you know, overbuying, hoarding, thinking that everything was going to close up. So not necessarily. Depends on the supply chain.
Okay, one other question I wanted to ask you, and for the listeners, Aidan participated with us in February down in UCC when we were discussing food and pharma and future trends, and the whole theme was about sustainability and creating enterprise in the community, not knowing that we were about to have the massive onslaught of COVID at that stage. And one of the big questions that came up in terms of food at that stage was, you know, the whole conscious consumer, and you've alluded to him there. The conscious consumer wants sustainable packaging, you know, their Irish provenance branding or source of origin for sure. And if it's Irish, to dial that up, particularly here in Ireland, we're very proud of our food production and we take it very seriously and we consider ourselves experts at it. And I would say as a nation, we are excellent at it. And it's certainly been one of our big selling points in the tourism economy, which has been so badly damaged. But it was about the sustainable packaging. It was about the quality of the food. It was about the you know, the nod to no packaging and loose fruit, veg, all that type of thing. And it was about the conscious consumer really demanding away from the big commercial giants saying, we want to buy local, we want to buy sustainable, we want to buy clean, we want to buy safe, we want to buy healthy. And it was all of this wrapped up. And as one of the speakers said, and they don't want to pay anything extra for that. How are small food producers able to manage that, and what's the way around it, and how do they pivot to be able to bring all these things to the marketplace without it being, not, you know, negatively, prohibitively costly?
Big question. Well, you know, it's really down to the processes and systems that they put in place right from the off breed. And you know, it's like you know, the old saying, you need to fail fast. So if one of your processes isn't working, well then, as you mentioned there, you've got to pivot quickly, take that loss if you had put some investment into it, and drive on with what's required, again, from a consumer perspective. So look, it's everybody's challenge in every business to you know, to get their processes right, but particularly from a food perspective, you have to be able to live by the brand that you're promoting, with everything that the consumer is now looking for, as you've said, right down to packaging, sustainability, provenance, and so on. That's the key message that's coming even from the biggest brands in the world. That, again, a quote from the guy in Ritter was, you know, we're a 100-year-old startup. In other words, they're trying to get a mantra throughout the company that says, act like a startup, not like a sleepy 100-year-old company.
Okay, thank you very much, Aidan Murphy from Innovate Solutions. And again, Aidan can be contacted on his mobile or email, or certainly contact us to get to mobile if you need it, if you need to get onto him now. My advice to you, and the more I speak to Aidan, the more I realise how important it is to do the ground research, particularly in the areas of food. We're a complicated creature, us humans. So I think it's important we tick all the boxes when we're going down the road of food production before you get too burnt. But definitely there are opportunities. Loads of food for thought, pardon the pun, boom boom, all done, my comedy session. So thanks, Aidan, for that. And next week for everybody, we have Fergal O'Connor from Buy Media taking part 2 of the session, making every marketing euro work. And for small businesses, this is so important, and it's really all about measurement and getting the data to work so that we can really see where we're putting our spend. So looking forward to talking to you again, and until then, stay safe, and please feel free to reach out to us at any time. Many thanks. Over and out.